Oh, sure, they give us chairs and make you sit on a cold concrete floor. What a cheap outfit. I thought I was addressing a yoga class for a second here. Thank you all for coming, though. This is wonderful. Toronto! Give it up! My favorite country, Canada.
So it's really great to get to know you and to talk to you, and I'm just reciprocating the feelings. And I'm lost for words because I'm just so happy, but I want to know, can we start from the beginning? Did you know that you always wanted to be a performer?
Yeah, when I was a kid, I was just one of those little cut-ups in school, and I learned if I did something silly and made a face, I'd get a cookie. It's an old reward and that kind of thing. So, yeah, I guess I was always that kind of a silly little goofball.
So how did it all start then? Where did you get your first big break?
My first big break. I went at the age of 25 from the wilds of Arkansas straight to New York City and got involved with the National Lampoon magazine right before Animal House came out. And they knew Animal House was going to be a big hit. And so they sent a comedy group across the entire country, including Toronto and Vancouver, and we played all over the place to promote the National Lampoon brand. And then they were so successful with Animal House that they were going to do a new movie right away. And it was just about that time that it was time for the next Jaws film. And so we were going to do a comedy called Jaws 3, People 0. And that was the best part of the film, believe me. And but we were going to show how the shark worked for a comedy, and Mr. Spielberg stepped in and said, don't think so. So they had to cancel the film. But that was my first big break. My Hollywood tragedy story, by the way, because according to the script, I had a love scene with Bo Derek. I still cry at night because of that.
Well, I can imagine, what a loss. But I mean, you were in so many other great films around that time, too. You were actually in Escape from New York.
I was actually on camera in Escape from New York. If anybody remember that film, John Carpenter?
How could you not? It was the best. Come on.
That was great. The first time you see Ernest Borgnine, he's in this old dilapidated theater, and on stage there's a bunch of convicts in drag doing a kind of a Broadway show tune kind of thing, and I'm the really hot-looking one in red on the left. Kind of like Mick Jagger in drag.
And I'm sure that people ask this question, but what was it like working on a production like that with an amazing filmmaker, a stellar cast? I mean, come on, it was so great.
Well, I mean, all we did was our part. This is kind of like what I do in my cartoons. I just come in. When we have celebrities in our show, I never get to meet them or anything. So what was it like? It was really good to get a paycheck. So that part was wonderful, and it cleared.
But were there any great memories, or were there any interesting run-ins with any of the cast?
I saw Kurt Russell in the hallway, and that was pretty much it for me. And to be able to meet Ernest Borgnine, one of my heroes, and later on down the road to have him work on our show as Mermaid Man, him and Tim Conway also, two of my heroes. So that was, I don't get starstruck very often, but getting the chance to work with someone like that was just a high point for my career so far.
But then that led you to other films like Heavy Metal. Like you were in Heavy Metal. And in terms of the hats that you've worn, the experiences you've had, that has to be a huge milestone.
Well, we didn't know it at the time. Heavy Metal, for those of you that remember the first Heavy Metal, became quite the cult thing because it was the first time you had, say, nudity in animation and you had adult themes. Again, that was done by the National Lampoon. That was their offshoot magazine, Heavy Metal. And so to be a part of that, and that became another iconic sci-fi production was really wonderful. And I got to work with all the people from Second City TV, which, by the way, I worked at Second City TV, Second City here at the Fire Hall back in the 70s. And I worked with Martin Short, and in fact, I replaced him when he got injured. And it's one of my finest memories is Toronto and Second City.
And that's Canadian comedy royalty right there.
It is,
with
absolutely.
John Candy, Eugene Levy, Joe Flaherty.
Joe Flaherty, Eugene Levy. Catherine O'Hara referred me to the Fire Hall after she saw my Lampoon show that we were doing in Toronto. So I've always been in love with Catherine since then.
That's amazing.
I want to marry her.
Were there any memories, anything that brought you I mean, John Candy had such a great heart, and he's just such a fond memory to a lot of the people in this town. Were there any interactions that stand out in your mind with him?
The day we recorded the heavy metal scenes, we were all there, and Ivan Reitman was directing, and all of us, several of the SCTV people and myself, were at the gate at Paramount waiting to get buzzed in, and they couldn't find John Candy's name on the list, and the first thing he ever said to me, the only thing he ever said to me was turn to me and goes, "Damn embarrassing." Just the way John Candy would do it, So.
And how did that then eventually take you to the path that took you to Squidward Tentacles?
Well, I was brought out to Hollywood to do Jaws 3, People Zero, and then it got canceled by Mr. Spielberg. And so I went down my agent's office at William Morris and I said, I can do some voices. Why don't you send me out to do some of that? Well, little did I know that would become my bread and butter for the next 40 years, which I'm very thankful for, by the way. And I wish I had a nice Hollywood story to tell you about that, but that's what it was. I wasn't on camera, so I got to do some voiceover work here.
But it got you an Emmy nomination.
I do have an Emmy nomination. I'm a little bitter about it. Because on the list of nominees for that night was June Foray, which, talk about royalty, she is royalty in the voiceover world. And what she was really being given was a Lifetime Achievement Award in that thing. So it wasn't really a competition, In fact, if any of us other guys had won, we would have been, just killed because it would be so injustice. So it was her time, but it wasn't really a competition, I'm not bitter, though.
So getting to know you and talking to you, your personality is completely different from Squidward Tentacles. I mean, he's that dry, acerbic sort of underachiever, and you are hardly acerbic, you are hardly dry, and you're definitely not an underachiever. So how do you manage to channel the character of Squidward Tentacles?
Well, I used to say that Squidward was my alter ego, but as time has gone on, I kind of merged with Squidward. So there's not that much of a difference anymore in myself and Squidward. I'm very sarcastic. I love to be that thing. But things get on my nerves just like it does with Squidward, and then I get to go apoplectic, and I scream a lot. Not really in real life, but it's very therapeutic. In the show, I get to scream, and I save a whole lot of money on psychiatry fees. So it's a very, very therapeutic thing for me. So he and I are now more one than we ever were.
And does that ever get you into trouble in real life?
Only when I start to grow extra legs.
Do you get a lot of people asking you for mentorship questions or ideas or how to break into voice acting, anything like that?
A lot of time, people will come to the table, especially in panels like this. They'll ask, do I have any advice? And I usually save this for the end, but I'll do it here. And it's not exactly silliness, but not just in the voice world, but in life, if you've got what qualifies for a dream, an ambition, or whatever, it is very important, to the best of your ability, to pursue that. Now, it's not going to ruin your life if you don't, but I guarantee you, for the rest of your life, if you thought you could have made it as an actor and you didn't pursue it, you'll always have that nagging thing in the back of your head, what could have been? What if? You go until one of two things happen. You make a success of yourself, which is, the threshold is far lower than you might think. Making a living, having actor on your tax return, not actor/waiter/gardener. And the other thing is, you give it all that you can for as long as you can, and then you decide, okay, I'm going to go do something else now. The reason I say this is that people fear failure. What I just described was not failure. The only failure in this whole topic is not trying. That's what you will feel bad about. I didn't give it a shot. You know, parents that have little kids that are playing ball or something, and the guy strikes out 3 times and he's in tears. And the parent will invariably say, good parents will say, did you give it all you had? And they say, yes, that's all we expected. The outcome is not the determiner of success or failure. So please, please, give it all you got. Life is way too short.
Oh, that's amazing.
Which, by the way, is not a joke here. I feign having a heart attack. I, along with William Shatner, have been declared dead twice. I was on my way to a Comic-Con in Australia, and a guy in Nova Scotia with my name, or I with his, died. IMDb picks that up and reports on the internet that this actor has died. I get there, and the guy, the runner of the convention, picks me up, and he got wind of this, so he called the airline and asked, was I on the plane? And they said yes. And I said, did you think to ask him, was I in the cabin or the cargo hold? Not 2 months later, another guy with my name, or I with his, in San Diego drops dead. This time, the TV station I worked at in college back in Arkansas picked that up and on their evening newscast did my obituary. I called them to try to explain in simple terms that I'm not dead! Isn't it apparent that I'm talking to you that I'm not dead? So they ran a retraction on that and they sent me the video. No one gets that window. No one gets that picture of what people will really say after you die. So it was very, very, very surreal. So now, when I do die, no one's going to believe it. They'll just think it's another typo. You know, oh, look at that, our football team won, it's going to rain tomorrow, and Rodger Bumpass died again. Who knew he was a damn cat? So I have much experience in life and death.
I've seen you with kids, and the way that you interact with kids. What's your favorite interaction? If you have one.
They don't know because we were anonymous voiceover people, but a lot of people do know what we as a cast look like these days. But most of the kids, they don't know. And I always steer the conversation around, hey, do you watch cartoons? What's your favorite cartoon? And then I kind of get to the SpongeBob thing. And when I do the voice, there's this realization, this explosion in the face. And it happens with adults, too. Their eyes get big as saucers, the jaws drop, and they invariably say, no way! And so that's actually every time people want to hear the voice. It's like going to your favorite rock band. You don't want to hear their new songs. You want to hear what you know and love and can recognize. And that's what people want in people from people in our business. So, and it's a wonderful way to interact with kids. I'm very blessed that I can be in this position to have that kind of a role with kids.
That's amazing. And I think what we're going to do is we're going to set up for questions. So if anybody has a question, you can line up, and the lovely Crystal there is holding her microphone. And if you want to line up right by her, then you can ask your questions of Rodger Bumpass.
We depend upon you to ask some questions here because you've learned every single thing I know in the past 2 minutes.
And I can't dance. So, and it looks like we have one there.
Do we need to keep our mask on while talking? All right, because it might muffle the voice a little. Hey, out of curiosity, that story you just told about how how about the media keep reporting you died and you got frustrated by it. Was that the inspiration for the SpongeBob episode Squidward the Unfriendly Ghost, where SpongeBob Patrick thinks Squidward died and then he pretends to be a ghost and then eventually becomes frustrated after they try to bury him?
No, it has no relationship whatsoever, but you're right in the comparison. So it seems like it might have a connection, but nah, it's just a happy coincidence.
But now I want to watch that episode.
Yes.
Right. Also, another question. Hopefully
we got
this
a
doesn't
twofer.
last too long. You see, there's this theory been going around that Squidward is SpongeBob's guardian. You see, when SpongeBob moved out of his parents' house, he was fairly young, so when he was living on his own, being independent, his parents wanted to make sure he was all right, so they kind of like asked Squidward to keep an eye on him, sort of like hiring him as his secret guardian, and SpongeBob never knew when he's supposed to know, and we don't know if that's true or not. What are your thoughts on that?
I'm sorry, what was the question? No, I don't know of any sub-story that matches that, but
Like, is Squidward secretly SpongeBob's guardian? What do you think?
No, not that I know of. I mean, there may be something down the road that, you know, if you write them a letter, it'll come around and be an actual episode. But as far as we go right now, nah. There's a lot of supposition about what goes on, what causes things. A lot of people were the old thing about Bikini Bottom was the location of atomic weapons testing, and that's why everybody is like not fish, you know.
Oh, the dark rumors of the internet, they
Not
do
true.
spread.
Not true.
Thanks for your question.
You're welcome.
However, all the houses are car mufflers. I only learned that recently myself.
Hi there.
So we all know that Squidward loves his clarinet, but if Squidward was in 2021, what popular songs of today do you think he would play on his clarinet?
He would not enjoy anything today. He's very particular and very artsy, and only him and Kelpie G are worth listening to.
Thank
Hi
you.
there.
Hi.
A lot of people really love, especially adults, really love Squidward because he's acerbic and grumpy and he's just kind of us on our bad days. So I would ask, what do you, Rodger Bumpass, think are maybe two good things about Squidward?
Well, he pays the mortgage. Number one.
Very important.
You know, what's good about him as a character, or what's good about him as far as my enjoyment with him. As a character, you know, he has this acerbic, disdainful shell. Deep down, ever so often, you'll see he went too far with SpongeBob, and he goes back and apologizes. The pizza delivery episode early on was one of those episodes where a guy was nasty to SpongeBob, and Squidward stepped in and avenged him with a pizza. So deep down, he's not. We can't make Squidward consistently a bad person. We want him to have some roundness to him. That makes him a little more sympathetic in his frustration. So it's to make him more elaborate than he probably is. That's the reason.
Thanks.
Good point. He did Santa thing, and he learned, just like in A Christmas Carol, he learned the value of giving, and that was kind of a different thing for him. Of course, he gave away everything he owned.
Hello there.
Hi.
Hi. So as most series don't run as long as SpongeBob. They have their highs and their lows, and many shows go through seasonal rot. So how is it for you? How do you keep up with it and still, I guess, go through the character? Because I find often characters like you go through their own phases, especially when Steven Hillenburg passed. Like, how did you push on to continue finding Squidward?
Well, we of course pushed on because Steven was such an inspiration to all of us. The most gentle spirit, but as you can see, incredibly creative. You would never think he's that wild in his brain just by talking to him. So, what was the first part of your question there, Mom?
How did you keep up voice acting and bringing something new to the character over like 10, 15 years?
Yeah. It's very easy to do. The writers keep on bringing us new things to do, new scenarios, which is a big burden because any long-running show, especially comedy, has a voracious appetite for storylines and comedy. It's amazing The Simpsons have lasted longer than we have. And so we also have 2 spin-offs, in case those of you that don't know about that. We have Camp Coral, which is a summer camp with the characters a little younger, so you kind of get their origins, how Squidward got to be how he is, and how Sandy and everybody else developed into adults. And then The Patrick Show, which is a kind of just a weird special on stupidity, and that's turning out to be okay. But the writers and animators came from Ren and Stimpy. Now, if you remember Ren and Stimpy, you can see elements of Ren and Stimpy remaining as a legacy sort of thing in our show. Ever so often, in fact, I have an 8x10 at my table that you can see. Someone says something, and then they cut to a very detailed art card of that person with every pimple and wrinkle and everything is there. And they call it a gross-up instead of a close-up. And that comes directly from Ren and Stimpy. And the guy that plays Plankton was a writer at Ren and Stimpy, Mr. Lawrence, which is his official name, by the way. And so when he writes a story, it's really crazy. I always say, do you always go to opium dens before you write your shows? Because he's very, very, very unusual. So how we keep things fresh, again, it's wonderful to be a part of such a long-running show, and that we don't have to have incentive or motivation whatsoever to do this. It's again, it's a paycheck, but still, it's so easy when you have good writing, and our writing has evolved also. If you have seen the first and if you've watched the show all during the time, early on we had a certain thing that was written by Stephen, and then later on in the middle of our run, the writers will admit this also, we kind of got complacent. And we weren't doing things really on the edge anywhere. And then they all got together and said, we need to go back to our roots, again, Ren and Stimpy. And now, if you see the shows that we're doing right now, when someone gets excited, the animation makes them distorted. So they don't really even look like their characters. And there's a lot more action. We're not word motivated. We're not word heavy. And so there is an evolution in every long-running show. And I hope right now I'm confident that we are onto a new thing that is very promising because it's just getting wilder and wilder.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm actually working to study as becoming an animator myself. So I hope one day I can hopefully add a little bit of new things.
Hopefully someday you'll be able to pay me.
Thanks for your question.
It's not all about money, folks. It's really not. No.
Hello.
Oh.
Hi there, I know you. You came to my table.
Yeah. So, is it okay if I ask 2 questions?
Okay, ask the second question first.
So, I have, add on to another person's question, you know that girl with the red shirt? She asked, I don't know what she asked, but, so does Squidward only, only I can pick on SpongeBob?
Well, no. I mean, he likes anybody else that recognizes the stupidity and annoying traits of SpongeBob. So he welcomes that sort of thing. Every time someone comes in with the similar disdain for him, for SpongeBob, Squidward, he's right there.
I agree with you.
And also, I just have one more question. Why is Squidward, a little mean to SpongeBob?
'Cause he's annoying! That stupid laugh!
And you're one of my favorite SpongeBob characters.
Which one?
No, you are.
Oh, thank you.
Boy, that was a lucky break. I thought he was going to say Plankton.
Thank you.
Have you met my agent? Working at the crab trying to feed a hungry mob.
Yo, what's up, dog? Name's Jay. I just want, yes, Squidward hates SpongeBob. That's true. But actually, he really loves SpongeBob on the inside.
Tell no one.
I won't tell anyone. Not even Squilliam.
Especially Squilliam.
Yeah. Anyway, what is your favorite Squidward cutscene / moment?
Golly, well, in what is generally thought of as the fans' favorite episode is Band Geeks. And it has some of the more iconic lines. Is mayonnaise an instrument? Kind of thing. No, man, and too bad that didn't kill me kind of thing. But one of my small moments, and also that song at the end, Sweet Sweet Victory, the animators found that song. It's kind of an Eye of the Tiger kind of stupid little song. And they thought it was so silly that they wrote the entire episode just to get to that song. And we did that, but one of my favorite little moments was they were getting ready to go on stage, and then Squilliam shows up. And he says, "Is that your band?" And they cut to the band, and SpongeBob's going. And they cut back to me, and they go, "That's his eager face." It just strikes me as one of my favorite little moments.
Yeah, it's mine too. I love your band. How Squidward lost.
I need your microphone there.
Yeah, I love your band. Like how Squilliam lost to you.
Yeah, one of the few times that Squidward actually comes out ahead. You know.
Yeah, that was my favorite. Along with how SpongeBob hosted the party, like down, 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 and all that.
Yeah.
That's great.
It was amazing. I'm
Thank-
glad you liked it. Keep up with the good work.
Thank you.
Come here often.
Thank you for the rap lead in also.
Take care.
Thanks for
Mwah.
the question.
I forgot the rest of the song. I have a rap song that I do for Squidward, but I just don't have it right now. I'll mess it up if I try.
So make sure you go to his booth and ask him. No pressure. Thanks for your question.
Sure. No problem.
Out of all the Squid Game characters, who's your favorite and why, besides the paycheck?
Out of all the what characters?
No. The SpongeBob characters, not Squid Game.
I still missed that. What was that?
I think he was asking which is your favorite character other than Squidward.
Other than Squidward, there are none.
He is my man, my spirit squid.
Squid Totem.
Squid, yes.
Hi there.
It's Gilligan.
Yes, my main question is, in the SpongeBob BC episode, how are the writers ever able to come up with a language that SpongeBob Patrick Squidward's ancestors speak, like Tabagadoo or Fwee Fwee, that sort of thing?
That's probably them on drugs. No, it's easy to come up with a nonsensical language. It's just really the sound of the grunts and whatever makes a funny sound. That's basically a language.
That's awesome. Thank you. Yeah, I love the detail. I love the knowledge that people are bringing to these questions and how you're able to specifically keep up with it. Like, it's incredible.
I'm playing it by ear, you know that.
Hi there.
I am.
Hi, I was just wondering what your favorite episode would be.
Here again, Band Geeks is a lot of people's favorites, but I have several that I just really, really love because of the things I was required to do. Dying for Pie is one of my favorites because Tom and I have a nice rapport when we have just a one-on-one kind of thing going on, and so we had a lot of that in that particular episode. The hash slinging slasher was early on, was one of which, by the way, we have resurrected, pardon the pun, Nosferatu in Camp Coral. He's a kid. He hangs like a spider's web thing in the top, so we're bringing it back. And I shouldn't tell you this. Uh-oh. No, I won't tell you. Well, we brought in another villain of horror movies for a cameo, similar to the way we did Nosferatu in the hash slinging slasher, but I'm not going to tell you who it is. Neener, neener. Also, there's an episode that I can kind of take credit for weaseling my way into it. Goons on the Moon, where they all take Sandy's rocket and go to the moon, and Squidward is a unwelcome a stowaway. And he gets out onto the moon's surface, and he goes into this tunnel, and he's trying to get out, and he sticks his head through various holes, and each time he does that, he's in a different universe kind of thing. And the final one, he comes through the artist's computer monitor of an animator at Nickelodeon. And I weaseled my way into being that animator on camera. So that when Squidward's face comes through the monitor, he sees the world and he screams, "Ah!" And then the animator sees the creature coming from his monitor and he screams, "Ah!" And it's exactly the same scream. So that's our little inside joke, a little Easter egg kind of thing. Also on our 20th anniversary, we did, you remember the live version of the Krusty Krab, the Trusty Slab, where we all played human versions of our characters, and that was surreal to do. I mean, I'm used to hearing Bill and Sandy and Plankton do their lines, but to see them in front of me on camera doing those characters was just a great Twilight Zone moment for all of us. We loved it. I wish they'd have a spin-off on that kind of thing.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Hello.
Hi.
So, as a voice actor, it's kind of your job to breathe life into a character, and not just like that character, but every other character that you interact with, and add depth and layers to their relationship. Yes?
Yes. Oh, yes.
So, in your opinion, have SpongeBob and Squidward ever made out?
Okay. What? Have they ever made it?
Made out.
Made out. Close. No.
Thank you for your time.
No. Squidward has one reference. Actually, there's two references to Squidward's having a girlfriend.
Make out reef. Good times, good times.
And the episode where he is smitten by another female type Squidward character, and he's paralyzed, and then SpongeBob has to take him on a practice date, which is really surreal too. But no, that's not the scenario for us, okay?
Hi. Simple question. What's your favorite Squidward quote?
Quote?
I didn't realize this was happy hopping moron day. Another day, another migraine. Let me explain how it works. I order the food, you cook the food, I deliver the food. We do that for 40 years, then we die.
And of course, the distillation of all things Squidward, I hate you all.
That's probably my favorite.
Hi
Hi.
there. Hi.
I just want to say I love your work. I've grown up on it with my little brother. We watched SpongeBob ever since we could remember. So
Let me give you a couple of dollars for that comment. Thank you.
I'm actually a film actor, but recently I've been trying to get more into voice acting. But the thing is, I find voice acting auditions a lot tougher than film auditions. And I was wondering if you had any tips on how to handle a voice audition.
Well, yeah, you're right, though. Voice acting, people think all you're doing is standing up in front of a microphone and talking. Well, you don't have a costume. You don't have makeup. You don't even have a physical expression, movements, gestures, whatever. You have nothing but what comes out of your mouth. So everything has to be funneled. It's like it's acting with not only a sag over your head, but your hands tied behind your back and in a box. So, voice acting is not as easy as you think it is, because you've got to do everything with the head, the heart, and the vocal mechanism that you have. So, all I can say for anyone that's trying to get into a different way of acting, it's still the same thing. Concentrate on acting. It's not just a voice. It's what you put behind it. All my colleagues can do the broad strokes, the gruff guy, the Weasley guy, whatever. It's what you bring to it that's different, that's going to get you that part. I always tell people, hey, if you want to learn to do voice work, practice imitating, say, family members or friends, you know, because that's going to be original, you know. Or do what they did in the Renaissance, and all new artists copy the masters. Then you develop your own style. But it's a craft that you learn as you do it, like comedy. You do enough comedy, and you decipher the entire world, everything that comes your way, and how can this be funny? And it's just a mindset. So.
Thank you so much. My dream is to voice a cartoon character, so this is really helpful, and I'll take it forward with me. Thank you so much.
Yeah, well, for people trying to start right now, because of technology, you have more of an opportunity than we did when we started up, because you had to be in a big city, New York, Chicago, Los Angeles. Now you can audition in your closet with your iPhone in Iowa and get the part, and I don't exaggerate whatsoever. So. And there's a lot of non-union work, so you don't really have to go, you know, totally professional. So the opportunities for young actors trying to get into it, again, pursue it. It doesn't cost you anything. It used to cost us hundreds and hundreds of dollars to run off reel-to-reel tapes with our demo voices on it. Not anymore.
Hi. So in 2019, you had a little cameo in something called the Super Bowl. How was that?
There was also a big mistake in that. I wasn't supposed to tell anybody I was going to be in there, and I got in trouble for that. So it was. If you remember, we were the notion was, the rumor was that Maroon 5 was going to perform "Sweet Sweet Victory." They ended up not doing that, so that was a bit of disappointment for all of us. You know, it's just the way things turned out. They didn't want to do that particular song. And you only have a little bit of time in a Super Bowl halftime, so part of me kind of understands it. But people didn't understand what was happening. I said, now here's the next band that doesn't need introduction or whatever, and it became something that nobody was expecting. So, it's the way it goes sometimes.
Awesome, thank you.
Hi, this might be a bit morbid, but you were talking about death. If one of the main cast of SpongeBob were to pass away, do you think the show would still go on? And if so, if you were to pass, who would be the person that you wanted to be replaced by?
I've already done it twice. Well, technically, in point of fact here, we have had 3 deaths in the show. Notably, of course, Stephen Hillenburg, but he wasn't one of the actors. Ernest Borgnine and Tim Conway both have died. And how we handled that was to retire the characters. Not necessarily to never have a reference to Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy, but they would not be in the show. We wouldn't replace them in remembrance of those 2 actors. As far as the other cast members, that's a interesting question and quite depressing, actually. I hope that point never comes, you know? They won't believe it if I died, though.
Squidward is life.
Good morning.
It's morning somewhere.
It's morning in my world. I work at night. If you could change one thing about your character, what would you change?
Well, I get that question a lot. You know, what would I do that's different? I'm having so much fun doing all the different things they give me to do. I don't really have any time or inclination to say, I want to do something else. And sometimes they take our ideas, and we run with them also. We have a very interesting way of recording our shows now. We'll do, say, 2 pages of the script as written, so the writers and the animators get what they want. And then we do a 3rd take, which we call our crazy take. And we can do whatever we darn well please. We improvise. We sometimes go a little off color just for our own amusement. And of course, everything's recorded. So there's a naughty reel somewhere. But a lot of the times our improvisations make their way into the show, and that's very gratifying and liberating. So everybody gets what they want, and we are able to actually contribute to the show in that way, and not just reading whatever they give us to do. So we do have a way of saying, I want to do this, and it works quite often.
Thank you so much.
And I think we have time for just one more question.
Hi there. This might have been asked already, but I was just wondering, how much did you base the voice and certain mannerisms off of people you knew personally? Like the laugh seems really kind of specific, and like I feel like I've heard Squidward laughs before, and also kind of like, have you known any kind of Squidward equivalents, in real life, like people who are kind of Squidwards themselves, or like real life Squidwards?
Yeah, well, in contradiction to what I just told the other young lady, to copy family members and friends, this is not what I did with this particular character. When you audition for an animation thing, you get a verbal breakdown of what their characteristics are. He's sarcastic, he's artistic, he's fussy, he's frustrated. And then they have a picture of him, and he had this big nose. And so I figured it might be nasal heavy, so I kind of put him in the back of my voice and just that kind of a sound back in there. As far as the laugh goes, Stephen came to me early on, and he said, we have something in mind for when he laughs. And we're going to accordion the nose in a rhythmic fashion. And so I thought for a second, I went, okay, and then it always ends off key, kind of thing. And so Stephen said, that's it. So the way the character was shaped was the breakdown plus whatever, creativity I could have brought to it, and it was just, thankfully, what Stephen said it needed. And the rest, as they say, is history.
Thanks for your question. Well, at this point, ladies and gentlemen, I want to say thank you to Rodger for not only providing information, illumination, but definitely an education. So, ladies and gentlemen, give it up, please, for Rodger Bumpass.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
I hope some of you can actually get up now, because she's cross-legged on the floor for like an hour.
That's 50 minutes you'll never get back of your life. Come to my table.